Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Electric Vibe podcast. I am one of your three co-hosts. You can call me Electric Man. It's great to be here. Our third co-host, Hucky Austin, couldn't be with us tonight, but we're looking forward to seeing him very, very shortly. But my brother from another mother, Mr. Kurt Hoffman, is here. Kurt, how are you today?
I was under the weather myself. It's been a week. Hucky is feeling better, but he has no voice at all. So unless you want to see the world's greatest funky mime from Maple Grove, Minnesota, he can't really talk much at all. His voice is shot. So he's sorry he couldn't be here with us today. But he sends his best, of course. And, he is always working behind the scenes with us, even when he's not on here, editing. He's doing mixing, thumbnails, all kinds of stuff. It's a division of labor, and it's a division of labor of love, because we love what we do here at the Vine. And we want it to continue and grow. We want to thank some of our new fans that are out here too in the fan base. We really appreciate you all coming on here in the comments. Have been.
Kurt, I know that you weren't feeling well, but I know that today's guest is bringing you a shot of energy, and I am excited to let you introduce this gentleman.
We just talked not that long ago either, and I'm excited. So picture this: Brooklyn. A kid grows up with music in his DNA. His grandfather is blues soul legend Sam Bluesman Taylor. He doesn't just want to make music; he has to. It's in his blood. Fast forward a couple of years later. This kid becomes the lead singer of George Clinton's 420 Funk Mob. He's on David Letterman with Amy Winehouse. He's opening for Rihanna, Shaka Khan, Lionel Richie, a whole host of others. He's learning from the masters, including Jellybean Johnson, the legendary drummer of the time and pioneer of the Minneapolis sound. And then 12 days ago, Jellybean passes away. But the show must go on, because that's what Jellybean would have wanted. And this Friday, December 5th, at the Bitter End in Greenwich Village, one of the most historic music venues in the world, Lawrence Law Worrell and the Planet 12 movement are taking that stage. They call him the hardest working man in the music business. He's a musician, producer, choreographer, bass player, and mentor. He studied music history like no one else. And I'm going to put in a little personal side here. I can vouch for the fact that you could talk about any group, I don't care who it is. This man will keep up with you and then some, and you'll learn something about that artist that you didn't know. So, and today he's here to tell us about legends, loss, and what it means to keep pushing forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Brooklyn's finest, Lawrence Law Worrell, is in the building. What's going on, my man, Law? How you doing, man?
Thank you so much. That's an amazing intro. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, well deserved. Well deserved.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me here. It's been a long time coming. Up top, thank y'all guys for your tremendous support over the years on every level. I can't, I'm usually not lost for words, but just when I think about what y'all guys have done to support the Planto movement, what y'all done, the stuff that we've done with Jellybean, and just overall, just always pushing forward for the culture. I appreciate y'all guys so much. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. We appreciate that. And you know what, Law, we have a mantra, Kurt and I, and Hucky as well, where, it's our responsibility, to showcase real music, real musicians, and to keep that live music going. And you are a true testament to that. So that's why we are glad to have you here. And we're just looking forward to chopping it up for, the next however long it takes, because we're here. So
I'm here. So it don't matter. I'm good. I'm good with all of it. I want the
Jay. Yeah, thank you, Law. Jay, before we get into our questions, both of us should probably share how we first came across Law. Would you mind telling about the first time you came across Law?
Sure. Well, I had always been rocking with Enema Squad, and 420, it was just because it's real music. It's dynamic. I was following you, Law, when you were posting your rehearsal videos, which are workouts in themselves. The rehearsal videos are almost like a show. Just to see you all putting in work to hone the craft and to make the show the best that it can be. So I was rocking it before we even met. Then we started attending some shows in New York, particularly at the Cutting Room. Yeah. And I was telling Kurt a story about what a real one you are. The very first time we spoke, the doors had opened and you were just finishing up your sound check. And we walked in and I told Kurt, I said, my man came right over to me, big hug. It was just nice to meet in person. We started chopping it up before the show, made arrangements to meet after the show for our pictures and our signatures and everything else. And that's really how I got into it. So it was very organic. I was listening to the music, getting into it before, but then it really came to fruition when we actually got to meet after, listening to the sound check, and then after a great dynamic show, which we're going to get into a little bit later.
So my first time actually not really meeting you at all was seeing you perform when I had interviewed Jellybean. My infancy into doing the podcast universe, Jellybean was my very first guest. Before this became the Electric Vibe, before Jay and I joined forces, and then Hucky coming on later. And you were a huge contributor to the Nothing Compares to P show with Official Biz and all these other acts through Jeff Luna. Shout out to Jeff Luna.
Jeff, my dude.
Yeah,
Oh,
and it was a great night. People, Martin Kember was there as well.
yeah.
Our brother, shout out to our brother Martin Kember, who finally ticked off a bucket list item, meeting Jimmy Jam for the first time at the Vibrato Lounge. Everybody's celebrating Bean from coast to coast because they were just at Vibrato Lounge last night, as a matter of fact, as of this tape, and the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minneapolis Punk All Stars. But going back to 2022, I'm like, who is this law guy? I mean, you were moving around the stage, giving the best James Brown, playing the guitar, doing this stuff. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I had to do my homework because I knew nothing about your career. I knew nothing about your connection to George Clinton, your grandfather, all this stuff. So without further ado, I think we're going to get into the questions. First of all, we got to give a shout out to your hometown there in Brooklyn.
Stand up, represent.
You go. So since you're a Brooklyn boy through and through, how did growing up in Brooklyn, and this is going to be a not 25 words or less answer, how did growing up in Brooklyn shape your music and this wide palette that you embrace?
Because Brooklyn is the ultimate melt. I mean, New York City is too, but Brooklyn in particular is the ultimate melting pot. You want to learn about how races get along? Brooklyn is the place to watch, because right across Eastern Parkway, that's Jewish land. Mostly Hasidic Jews. Once you pass on the other side, you in the ghetto, the hood where we're at. Pizza shops, Chinese restaurants, West Indian spots. I still get my challah bread from the same place I used to get it when I lived in Brooklyn as a kid.
Oh, wow.
So this automatically teaches you about peace and harmony. Every now and then there would be certain things, as we all know in history, where if you went certain places, but for the most part, it became that. And because I'm from the other side of Crown Heights, I'm here to say I am very proud of the fact that I came up raw the way I came up, because even with having a famous family in the music industry, you still had to fend for yourself, because as I learned later, it's like, oh, that's Sam Taylor's grandson. That's Sandra's son. It's like, yeah, okay, that's great. But what can you do? They don't say that to you, but that's the attitude. So in retrospect, though people may care, because some perks definitely came with that. You know what I mean? Being the grandson of an incredible blues legend, soul legend, and funk legend. But I knew at the same time, in my teenage years and going to my young adult years, I had to show and prove, no matter who my father or my mother was. You had to come with it. So how it shaped me is because it's the rugged side of the mountain. This is the hardcore street essence, where you couldn't say you were the best. You had to show and prove. Challenge yourself. And it didn't help, nor did it hurt, the fact that my mother, like my granddad, was affiliated with the bands that y'all know today as the creators of what we call Brooklyn Funk, Brass Construction, Crown Heights Affair, Unlimited Touch, Sky, and of course, BT Express, which my grandfather had a lot to do with their success. I was raised in, and got to put Mandrill in there too, because Mandrill's from Marcy Project. Way before Jay-Z put Marcy Projects on the map, Mandrill put Marcy Projects on the map first. So I came up in it. I couldn't escape it even if I would have tried. Thank God I never tried to, but I was like, I wouldn't have been able to escape it. So between all those influences in my family and being surrounded and having a famous family already where everybody had their own chapter, and that became my Juilliard for music, plus the hardcore street ethic of grind and hustle, I already knew I was going to win one way or the other. Something's going to happen. Something good is going to happen, and I escaped crime. Music saved me from the streets. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my friends who fell victim to the pitfalls of as we know, the New York City streets, they call it the belly of the beast for a reason. You either sink or swim.
The best school right there.
Oh, yes. It's the real school of hard knocks. You have to learn. You have to really, really learn how to hold your own, move around. And that had nothing to do with music. That's just on a normal street level. Just being around and having street smarts. And then, I was supported by the OGs. I was supported by the gangs. You know what I'm saying? I never went there and asked, hey guys, can you support me? That's television BS. You know what I mean? Like I had the real support because that's what I grew up around.
Yeah.
I grew up around the pimps, the hustlers, the money makers, and the shakers. I grew up around all of that, and they were my biggest supporters.
He had Coco on, Big Coco, Bodyguard,
Yeah,
during and Hucky, good friend, Hucky helped him get his gig. He always talked about how you had to be a street entrepreneur.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
So shout out to Coco.
The hustle is real. I mean, I remember at one point, as I got when I finally got into hip hop around 7 to 8 years old, then there's break dancing. So between the talent shows and dancing on the streets for money. So, it's like, yo, look, do one of them windmills, man. Like that. So, you know what I mean? Like I was part of it. And then, you're young and you're making, back then, $20, you were rich for a
Yep.
for 80s baby. You had $20 in your pocket, you were doing something right, and having a family that made sure I didn't do any of the other stuff that people were doing. And I don't knock their hustle either. Everybody did what they had to do. So
Right.
I think in that aspect, street entrepreneurship, because you learn how to make money. You know how to get $4 from your cousin. And then by the time the day is over, you got $10 in your pocket because you just did a dance or you hung out or you just got people that just truly, genuinely liked you. It's like, yo, here's $2, man. Just go to the store for me. They ain't never put no illegal stuff in my midst. They just say, go to the store and get me a pack of cigarettes or, or get me a Gatorade. And you make a couple of bucks. Me and my brother, we were definitely them kids, like most of the kids in our neighborhood.
Yep. So you know what, Law? Growing up in such a rich musical family, especially with your grandfather, but you have this innate organic talent. But can you tell what type of mentorship and guidance you got from your family? I mean, I know you had to come correct on your own, but what
Yeah.
type of can you explain the type of support that you got?
Well, I mean, you probably hear a lot of stories from many artists who had parents and family that didn't support them. I'm the total opposite. I had all the support in the world. My older cousins, of course, my siblings and everybody who I'm close to, all my aunt, you know what I mean? And of course, my uncles were my teachers. And it's funny that I speak about it now because with the exception of my Uncle Kevin and my Uncle David, all of my main music teachers are gone. My Uncle Bobby, my mother's younger brother, that was my main teacher. He was the one that was the Motown school in our family. So everything I learned about Motown, I learned from him because his two favorite singers are Smokey Robinson and Eddie Kendricks. So I learned, the plethora of all that stuff with harmony air. And then we're already a singing family from church. So we had that naturally too. We already had that ability to harmonize. And then going to my grandmother's church, United Missionary in Brownsville, East New York, Brooklyn, so coming at the upbringing, I'm a singer first. Singing came first for me. That's just a natural part of my mother being who she was, studying all the divas, Shaka, Patti Aretha, Jan Warwick, and of course her favorite singer, Nancy Wilson. That's how I learned about that. So all those different attributes played a role because they were my Juilliard for music. So if you think about my Uncle Bobby representing the Motown stuff, my grandfather is the first rock star of the family because of all the work that he did with Joy D and the Starlighters, the Olympics, the Coasters, the Drifters. Those are all his buddies. They used to be at the family house. You come in the living room, you come in from school, Benny King is sitting right there on your couch.
Oh, shoot.
Let's just stand by me.
Yep.
Because of the work that my grandfather did with the Beatles, my mother would come home and be like, hey, that's Dennis Wilson. So imagine that. Fast forward in the 80s and 90s, I'm living with my grandfather. I come in the house and Albert Collins is sitting right there. Master of the Telecaster, which is, as y'all know, that's my main guitar. Remember that day like it was yesterday? I said, hey, that's the dude from Adventures in Babysitting.
Babysitting, I was just going to say.
And then my grandfather was like, hey, Albert, it's my grandson. He's just like you. Why is that, Sam? Because you don't use a damn pick evil. Oh, you evil, huh? Well, keep on practicing, son. They call me the master of the Telecaster. I'm the Iceman. He did just one riff on guitar, and I was set. Because you got to remember, at the time, they were telling me I wasn't able to play real rock and roll unless I use a pick. But I'm like, then I discovered later Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac, Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits.
Knopfler, yeah.
Yeah.
And let's not forget Uncle Bean.
When I wasn't used, and Tony Maiden from Rufus, my main idol.
Oh, there you go.
So once I learned I wasn't alone, and after seeing Uncle Albert do that in front of me, all systems go. So going back to what you were saying about my family, everybody had that section. Then my uncle Jock Showbiz Taylor, that's where hip hop comes in that because he was already hanging out with the Treacherous Three, which featured Kumo D, of course. No, he was in the Bronx hanging out with these guys. It's at the height of their powers. So all the first rap records between my Uncle Kevin, Uncle Jock, we learned all the first hip hop records. The Message, Wonder of the World, New Rap Language by Treacherous Three, and then of course the group that would have the most impact on me hip hop wise, Run DMC. Because once I saw Run DMC, I was like, yeah, I sing, I could play, but you know what? I could rap too. I could write some poetry. And that's how I got into rap. So everybody in my family played their role in the section of my development. And then let's not forget my Uncle Benny Earl, who was my grandfather's songwriting partner. They taught Sam and Dave. Before Sam and Dave went to Stax Records, they were signed to Roulette Records. And they were under the guidance of my grandfather and my uncle. So again, the teachers, and then one more person we can't leave out, or two more actually. My uncle, Reverend Charles Taylor, who's the second biggest rock star in the family in the gospel world. Recorded 30 albums for the Savoy record label, the legendary Savoy record label. And then there's my legendary uncle, Tony T. Funk Austin, who is the department of funk. He played with James Brown, Bobby Bird, Kool and the Gang. And my uncle Rudy Worrell played with Millie Jackson, Blue Magic, and the Dramatics. This is all before I turned 10 years old. So this is literally, my household was a smorgasbord. Everything was there for me. And because there were no limitations, because most families that come from church, you can't listen to secular music. You're going to heaven. And we didn't have that.
What a blessing.
Amen. My grandmother, God bless her soul. My grandmother was Shirley Caesar, Clara Ward, and the Jackson Southerners all day. But guess what? He loves some Jackie Wilson and Otis Redding. So the balance was there. And even my Uncle David, renowned minister that learned under the legendary Frederick K.C. Price. Evidence. That was a teacher. So literally, and mind you, like most ministers that people don't know, everybody just think, oh, these Christian people don't like secular music. That's not true. My Uncle David, we would be in church all day. As soon as we get to my grandmother's house while we waiting for Sunday dinner, hey, Lawrence, I need that Temptations box set from you. I know you got it in your room.
You sure enough did.
Unlike most church kids, I didn't grow up in bondage. And I'm very happy about that. I'm being honest with you. If I would have grew up in bondage, in that hardcore church environment where you can't do nothing, you can't listen to nothing, you can't wear this, a lot of my friends went through that. But I did. So I had total freedom. Yeah.
To your point, that's balance. So, you know what, Law, can we talk about George Clinton and the funk legacy? I mean, you were the lead singer of George Clinton's 420 Funk Mob, okay? I mean, what is that experience like? I mean, what can you share?
Can I be honest with you? It's been over 25 years, close to 30 years. And believe it or not, I still pinch myself sometimes when I'm hanging out with him. I call him dad. So it's still surreal to me sometimes when he still shows the love. I've done so much for him and with him, and he's still, Lord, bad motherfucker. I'm like, he still looks like kind of like how Bean was with me. Like he's still, like all the time I've known Bean and Mars, same thing with Mars. You know what I mean? All the guys, him, Freeze, and all those guys, to get those accolades from your heroes is better than any Grammy or platinum plaque you can ever receive. So with George, and I'm going to tell you why, because at 11, 12 years old, I told my mom, I'm going to meet George Clinton one day. I'm going to be part of the Funk Army, because the more I learned about him, thanks to my legendary uncle, T. Funk Austin, because he had nothing but Funkadelic and Parliament records. And ultimately, I'm going to get into this later, but ultimately, Parliament Funkadelic is the reason why I created Planet 12. The whole concept came from me being under their influence way before I would join them and know more about what they had done in the industry. But I've always felt that if there was anybody that can truly understand the organized musical chaos going on in this brain of mine, it would be him, because George is the master of organized music chaos. Prince, Michael Jackson, Jackson 5, and pretty much every damn hip hop artist. What do they all have in common? All of those major people, and Stevie Wonder too, they all were influenced by Parliament Funkadelic.
Right.
The Jackson 5's version of I'll Bet You. Ice cream on a red hot stove, and I bet you. That's Funkadelic's record, but Jackson 5 recorded it for their ABC album. That's the first time we actually hear Tito sing. A lot of people don't know. So that's what I'm saying, the connecting link. And then with Prince, it was pretty obvious because he wrote Erotic City after leaving a P-Funk. Later
the
on,
Greek Theater, right?
Being St. Paisley Park and all that other stuff. But we already knew. It wasn't hard to tell, because if you listen to most of Prince's recordings, there was always a debt to either Sly and the Family Stone, Grand Central Station by itself, and Parliament Funkadelic with a little bit of Santana. That's Prince's whole blueprint. Yeah. Literally, for me, the more I began to learn why George was that important, I told my mother, I'm going to meet them one day. I'm going to join the P-Funk Army. And right around the time my third year in college, thanks to Gabe Gonzalez, leader of Enemy Squad, shout out to Gabe, Sarah Traeger, Stozo the Clown. My dream came true. George heard my demo and went nuts. And right around that time, I was already part of Enema Squad already, but then Cliff Payne, the leader of 420 Funk Mob and Parliament Funkadelic as well, asked me to come in and just be a part of what they were doing. Simultaneously, I did my Phil Collins business. There's a Planet 12 thing with just my stuff, but then here I am. You see me with Enema Squad. You see me with the P-Funk All-Stars. You see me with 420 Funk Mob. So yeah, so that's the importance, because George is the proprietor of organized musical chaos, because even though they're known for the funk, here's my analogy, and I want y'all to follow me. James Brown created the funk. Fire and the Family Stone diversified the funk. But thanks to George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, funk became a genre and pretty much the closest thing to organized religion. Yeah, it became synonymized. The first thing that people think about, if it's not James or Sly, when you say the word funk, the first thing that comes to mind is George Clinton.
Right.
That's because there were all these textures mixed within. It wasn't just funk. Funk was the hotbed. But then there's the rock and roll. Listen to Alice in My Fantasies. And dare I say this, Alice in My Fantasies will blow anything that Led Zeppelin ever did out the heavy metal wise, period. And because they didn't get the promotion, because Parliament Funkadelic represented what we call the ultimate musical balance. Why? Because they were too hardcore black for the white audiences, but yet too psychedelic and crazy out there for the black audiences. In between that medium, you bring everybody together.
And then, Law, look at what happened when it transcended and started to come into the rap and hip hop. Obviously, everything that Dre did with, how many samples are Parliament Funkadelic on their albums?
Parliament Funkadelic, next to James Brown, is the most sampled band in hip hop. Period.
Right.
But
just on West Coast records alone.
Yeah. Right. Clinton embraced the hip hop. I don't think James initially really wanted anybody sampling his stuff. Clinton had albums specifically designed for these guys to sample from. He saw the road ahead more than anybody did. He was way ahead of the game before anybody else when it came to in hip hop.
Well, I mean, can I be honest with you? George was ahead of everyone, period.
Yeah.
Know why I say that? Because the thing is, there was a time period in the mid-'70s. Because mind you, George and them already have been out for years. They were doing all the early Westbound era stuff, which is my favorite era of them. And then once they got signed to Casablanca Records, as George always says, Parliament was totally meant to be the commercial part of what they were already doing. That's why the Funkadelic records were more raw. And Parliament was more like, Flashlight. The only commercial record that Funkadelic is known for is One Nation Under a Roof. And that was their response to disco. They weren't a disco band. They said, if we're going to do a disco record, let's do it how Parliament would do it. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
Think about it. All this crazy funk hybrid, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, da 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 da. That's like operatic, but that's George though. That's George. All that shit entwined in the mix on a hotbed of funk. So even no matter how funky it is, you're going to get all these different genres on top of it. Without Parliament Funkadelic and George Clinton, there would be no Prince, no Lenny Kravitz, no Bad Brains, no Def, no Fishbone, no Living Color, and damn near every alternative grunge band that loved funk, from Soundgarden and to Red Hot Chili Peppers, which, by the way, George Clinton produced their first album. See the connection?
Yeah.
See what I mean? So that's why no one should be surprised when you see No Doubt or D'Angelo or anybody else that's ever incorporated a P-Funk song in their set or in one of their songs. That's all by design, because that's how influential George Clinton was and still is.
Right.
Still out there doing it. But 83 years old, 84 years old?
85, yeah. Oh, George is still, and mind you, George knows all the words to Cardi B songs. Yeah. I make money move. I said, look at you, Dad. How you know all the words of that? But it doesn't surprise me. Number one is a quick story. I remember one time back then, he would come out later, in the show. They'll let the band play like 3 songs, and then he'll come out and people go crazy. So I remember one night, they're doing a Cosmic Slop. They're right in the middle. George comes out, the crowd's going crazy. Thinking George's going to be like, hey, what's happening? You know what George does? To the window, to the wall, to the... Hey, yo, Dad, what you know about that? And you know what he said? He said, Yang Yang Twins is us all over again. I said, how so? He said, because that's chanting music. Think about it. Shit, goddamn, get off your ass and jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that, get low, that sound like something that P-Funk would have did 30. And most Southern artists, especially the hip hop artists, they are all children of Parliament Funkadelic because of the demographic of the South that love P-Funk.
Organized noise.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say it, but thank you. There you go.
You and I already have a
Dungeon family. Absolutely. The minute I saw Goody Mob put on the
Goody
wig
Mob.
stuff, I said, yeah, there. Because, and then here's another group that we forget about too. When I formed my own group in high school called the Bionic Idiots, which is named after a slogan that P-Funk actually created, I'm thinking we the only hip hop group that's embodying the P-Funk aesthetic. And then we saw this video called The Humpty Dance by a group called Digital Underground. We was like, man, we better than them. But then and of course, not just us being cocky, but after a while, I started getting into them. And it felt good to know that I wasn't alone in my way of thinking. And years later, me and Shock G would hang out at the Peace.
Shock
You
G.
got to. May he rest in power.
God bless.
Rest in peace. Absolutely. I got stories, man. I'm telling y'all.
I always loved his remix of Love Sign for Prince. And throwing in a little bit of I Can't Go For That by the Hall & Oates.
Yes. Yes.
There. That's a slick man. That still bangs today. I put that on a regular song.
Yeah, Shock G was one of a. I'm so glad we had a chance to hang out multiple times, but before he untimely left us. But yeah, but to the point of what I'm saying again, the influence of P-Funk will forever reign supreme, and even more so now.
Kurt, do you mind if I just jump around a little bit? You know what, Law, I wanted to ask you, because you're such a student and you study and you understand. And I want to talk a little bit about the industry a little bit later, but you're such a student of music and of all the other artists. Explain how that has affected and actually helped the trajectory of your career.
Well, the Bible says, study to show thyself approved. And craftsmanship is very important because, we live in an age now where artist development barely exists or is no longer there. And I, as well as y'all guys, we are from the school where, especially in hip hop, you couldn't just say you were the best. You have to show and prove. And if you're not putting in the work, it's going to show. So it's definitely important because the craftsmanship and putting that type of work in to make sure, like I said earlier, yeah, that's my granddad, that's my mom, it's my uncle, but nobody cares. Until you show what you can do, nobody cares about that. It's all about what do you bring to the table? What's your story? You know what I mean? What are you showing us that we need to see that has nothing to do with the fact that you're related to so and so? So from the time I was 5 years old, I was putting in work in mine. And our family are natural night owls. So here I am, I'm up till 2 a.m. And then the times where I did fall asleep early, my Uncle Bobby coming in with his boys, they harmonizing and they're singing Heat Waves Always and Forever. So in the group, the guy Squeaky, he couldn't do that middle part, when John Wild does the whole falsetto thing. And I hear my Uncle Bobby, man, y'all suck. My nephew can do it way better than y'all. And of course, if you saw the Jackson 5 movie, you know where I'm going with this. My Uncle Bobby would wake me up. I'm like, what's going on? He said, come here, Lawrence, come here. Do that part from Heat Wave like I taught you to do. Because, he was my teacher. And of course, they'd be like, damn, Bob, you sound like you, man. That's going to be a bad one. So again, you know what I mean? And getting that accolade, because, for me, it's like the fact that I made my uncle happy and everybody in my family really recognized my talent. I'm rehearsing every day. And at this stage and age where I'm at today in 2025, outside between rest and just taking care of myself, every day is a rehearsal. Every day is craftsmanship. Every day is putting in the kind of work like I'm still 15 years old. That's the reason why when you see me performing on stage, they'd be like, damn, man, Lloyd ain't out of breath. And he like he 15 on stage doing all that movement. He ain't hurting. He recovered from an accident and he looked brand new. That's all part of it. You got to put in that work. It's just consistency and having the passion for what you truly love. And that's not just music. That could be anything that you choose to do. I taught at Stony Brook today. So I had some students, I was teaching them the same thing today. And I said, whatever you're passionate about, that's what you're going to spend the most time and the most money to invest in. And y'all have updated technology. Remember, we're the generation that birthed your technology.
Right.
So
Right.
Now you have even more easy access to put things together faster than you ever could. I was always fast because I was on it. And I never let anybody tell me, well, if you don't do this, if you don't, I'm like, no, y'all better say that thing because technology can't be defeated and won't be defeated ever. Right now, as we're talking, doing this podcast interview, there's a kid in his basement right now developing something that's going to change the whole world.
Change the game.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
Correct.
So why argue? Argue.
Right.
Put the work in.
Yeah.
Put the work in.
Kurt.
Well, I'd like to go back. It blows my mind that you actually you've worked with so many diverse artists. I want to go back to Amy Winehouse. Millions of people got to see you for the first time. For many people, perform on David Letterman's show, doing background vocals, wearing that white Kangol cap.
Yep.
And what was that experience like? And what do you remember about working with her?
What I always want the world to know about my little sis, I get emotional when I talk about it sometimes because Amy knew her shit. She was a student of the craft. That's why so many people connect with her, even though she was only, she was only 20, 23, 24 when I met her. So, and I put her to the test because I said, you mentioned Mr. Hathaway in your song Rehab. What's your favorite Donny Hathaway album? And she says, Lazi. That was her name for me, Lazi. Lazi, I love the first album, but Extension of a Man is my favorite. That's my favorite. I said, yeah, you've done your homework. So everything that you see on stage and heard in her music through her own original composition, Amy has always done her homework. And that's what I want people to know. Because, a lot of times it talks so much about her personal demons and things that she went through and everything else. But the Amy that I got a chance to know and sit down with and call my little sister, and then she did her homework on me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, your granddad played with Joey D and the Starlighters. Didn't Dave Brigatti date Ronnie Spector for a while? I'm like, you know your stuff, young lady. Okay. So that always blew my mind. So the memories of just us performing, and then probably the most golden part of it all is her boyfriend at the time, Blake, which is most of her songs are about him. Blake let her hear my demo, which became the Plan 12 Syndrome album, the first album. It was still a demo. It wasn't completed yet. And I just gave it to him because he wanted to hear it. He had heard that I rap. He said, yo, I heard that you rhyme too. I was like, yeah. I said, it's all on the one album. And the next day for rehearsal, Amy comes busting in the door. Lazi, oh my God. Blake, let me hear your record. Yo, you have to open up for me. You have to open up for me. Now, mind you, in the words of Sunshine Anderson, I heard it all before. Come up in this business. Everybody say one thing, but then do another. Up until that time, the only two men that had proven themselves to me that they were men of their word was Morris Day and George Clinton. So I'm like, okay, let me see if you're really about it. And sure enough, the following month, I get a call from her and her management. Say, hey, Law, is 30 minutes a good way for you and your band to open up? I said, sure. If you think that's big enough, then that's fine. So keep in mind, she owed me nothing. She wasn't obligated. Shit, the #1 album in the country, Back to Black, was already right before the Grammys. And she allowed me to be her opening act in New York City, not once, but twice.
And she fought for you to be the opening act because the company didn't want an unsigned independent act on
Yeah,
that.
Universal. I mean, that's typically with most major labels. Universal Records didn't want, they wanted one of their acts that got signed. But Amy and her manager, Ray, and her team said, no, we want Law and the Planet 12 movement.
Special.
Yeah. So for me, it's going to always be bittersweet because Amy had so much more to do. And she wasn't very ambitious about recording. She was very much into being a domestic person that didn't have to do music only at her leisure. But she still had enough in the arsenal that can compete with anything that you're hearing out here now.
Absolutely. Right. That's well said. Well said. You know what, Law, you mentioned Morris Day, and we talked about Morris in that time. And obviously you and I have been to some shows, and Kurt just recently to the show.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jellybean, because Jellybean, one of your uncles, one of your mentors, how did that relationship develop? And can you take us through the evolution of that relationship?
Yes, I am. And in order to do that, let me go check on something real quick. I'll be right back. But yeah, we're going to definitely get into that.
If I get a little live performance here,
Right.
at least recorded.
Right. At least we hope so, right?
He can't help himself but put an instrument in his hands now.
Right.
If you don't, folks, if you don't know Law, he loves having an instrument in his hands.
And the thing that I think needs to be said is that he is just music. He's not just a performer, entertainer, producer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, but he is, as we alluded to, student of music.
that he mentions throughout the whole thing. I mean, you've got people like he mentions Mark Knopfler and Lindsey Buckingham and Shock G and Goody Mob all in the course of how many minutes here? It's
Yeah.
crazy. Oh no, I know. So I tell you, with Uncle Bean, take us through the evolution of that.
Okay. Well, to talk about Uncle Bean, we have to talk about the time. We have to talk about that incredible, legendary night at Tramps in New York City.
You were there, Jay.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. Anybody that's been to New York, you've heard all those incredible, wild stories of Prince, D'Angelo, Sandra St. Victor. I even got a chance to jam on stage with my number one bass idol, Mr. Larry Graham, and my number one drum idol, my grandfather's friend, the late, great Buddy Miles. I got stories. Keep telling y'all, I got stories. And so the one night, because mind you, Enema Squad was the opening act. So we're there. Now, I'm happy to be on stage finally. After years of coming to Tramps, I was like, I finally get to play on the stage as an artist. Excited. And we're opening up for my heroes all the years that me and my brothers had waiting. Because remember, me and my brother Pepe used to win talent shows imitating Morris from Jerome. Not to mention, the time is the reason why me and my brothers even started wearing suits to church. We hated suits. So influence of Mars Day and the Time alone. Anybody that's ever seen my shows and know me growing up, they knew what those guys meant to me. And I told my mother once again, one day, Mom, I'm going to meet Mars Day. I'm going to rock with my heroes. Manifestation is real. If you learn nothing else from my history and in this podcast and any interview that I do, you'll learn that words are power and manifestation is real. So in any given moment, that night was incredible. I'm like, I get to meet Morris and Jellybean and Jerome. And here's the funny thing about that night. So we kicked ass. We did what we came to do. But some of the members of Enema Squad, who shall remain nameless, they was on this shit like, yeah, we kicked Mars Day's ass. Huh? What are you talking? Man, get away from me. Y'all not gonna mess this up for me. What are you talking about? Those are my idols. But you know, that's a Midwest thing. So I'm just like, nah, man, I'm not. I separated myself that night. And it just so happens I ended up in the band dressing room. And how irony, the first person I meet from the time was Jellybean. So of course, yeah, I'm starstruck like a mother. Absolutely. Because Jellybean is just as tall as my best friend. My best friend Khalif is like 6'4". So look at them two.
Yeah.
And here we are. Then Monty Moore comes out. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And even though we had kicked ass on stage and did what we did, we went to the front. We were going to eventually get backstage again because we know we just played already. Typical that control. Come out, wrong colors, everybody's going crazy. And then there's a spotlight next to Freeze. I'm like, Marie Lewis comes out.
Right.
Imagine me at that moment with my best friend and my brother. Boy, as soon as they hit that, what time? We were just, man.
And the thing that I remember, because I was at that show, was the fact when Terry got out there, it was note for note with Freeze. The steps were fresh. I mean, they were putting in work. It was seamless. But just to see the both of them after you all had already wrecked the house, and then they came out. I mean, the night was, for lack of a better term, it was magical, really.
Not to mention, they did Gigolos Get Lonely too, and Freeze and Terry did a 12-minute, 10-minute bass solo.
Right.
I still got the pictures from that.
Wow.
So, of course, we hanging out with them the whole night. At that point, I didn't know where Enema Squad was. When that night was over, we hung out with all those guys. And of course, Mars had to warm up to us. Mars is Mars.
Yep.
And yeah, man, y'all take free. And I mean, we just like, because you couldn't tell me I wasn't Mars. My brother was Jerome. So it's like,
oh, I was going to ask.
So the funny thing is that now they would come to New York like every other 4 months at Tramps. So I became their promoter, streetwise. I was writing for a newspaper, but I also made my own flyers because I felt like it was a packed house. But I feel like, how come they're not being announced? How come they're not, there's no promo for this? And Jerome noticed that. So as time went along, every year, even as I got bigger with P-Funk and everything like that, if I was on the road with P-Funk and I was home and Mars Day and them was coming to town, we up in there. And that's how it developed. The brotherhood. They would play the Apollo. We'd be in the elevator with them, and then we get out, go to dinner, hang out backstage and hear all the ask certain questions that we weren't able to ask them just before Mars wrote his book. So we knew all this stuff already. He said, that's me on Controversy. I said, you know what? I'm not surprised. It makes sense. Because you start to learn the different valuables of the Minneapolis sound. Not to mention, Jellybean always loved that no matter when we were talking. I said, Bean, don't get me started on you with Crucial and Criticize, man.
Right.
And Bean was like, damn, nephew, you really know my catalog? I said, yeah, dude. Anytime that we saw your name on anything, same thing with Jesse Johnson. Anytime we saw your name on a production or writing, we bought the record, even if we didn't know who, we wasn't familiar with the artist. Because New Edition and The Time are very similar. The two ultimate supergroups. Everybody in the band has an influence. If you think about it, right? Think about it.
Right.
Has an influence. Same in Parliament Funkadelic. Every guitarist in Parliament Funkadelic are guitar heroes. Every last one of them. Hampton, Scheider.
Right? Yep.
I know him, by the way, on tour. So,
Okay.
there you go. I'm with Uncle Gary. So the thing is, it's the same pushing of the culture. So as time went along, we had always spoke about working with each other. Whether I would continue, I opened up for them like I think 2 more times after that. And then one night, our good friend Sinbad, very good friend, who was actually close to my drummer, because my drummer, Dorsey Scott Parker, was his driver every time he came to New York to do a comedy. And as y'all know, we don't talk about this enough. Sinbad is one of the main reasons why funk music is still relevant in terms of generations.
And his cruises that he does too.
It's the same Thomas thing that he would do for HBO and Apples and Bell Bottoms, that whole thing, you know. And of course, we were all in with him because we became Sinbad's backing band. So one night he had a show somewhere. Morris Day and them had a show, but see, Sinbad said, "Hey, Law, I want to play with y'all tonight. I got my congas with me." Hell yeah, come on, you know. So I told Jellybean, Freeze, and Tori. I kind of knew Mars was going to come. You know, Mars has to, you know, do what he does. So Bean and Tori came down. And Bean jumped on stage. So we did Fishnet. And as y'all know, Bean plays the guitar solo. So we did that night and killed it. So those are just little baby steps. Different things that were hanging out over the years and years and years. And then, as we would know it, one day I just get a random call from Bean. "Hey, nephew, I just got to tell you, man, you know, I've always loved your production, your writing. And me and Monty was talking about it not too long ago. And I just want to let you know, nephew, I'm working on my own album. And I want you to, I want some songs, man." See my face, right? The man who produced Black Cat, New Condition, for New Edition, Criticized for Alexander O'Neal, is asking me to produce? I should be asking you.
And
Tell me nothing that day. I've been waiting for that moment all my life to have any one of my Minneapolis heroes say to me. And they already gave us the props. You know, like I said, Marshall already, you know, they already gave us that love. But stage is one thing, studio is another. Because these are the men, the architects of the Minneapolis sound. And yet they want this kid, this hyper kid from Brooklyn. They got his own thing going, already got the props from all these other units and pretty highly respected, to come in and do music with them in the studio. I said, yeah, B, I'm with it, man. I'm totally with it. You know, the origin, if she can get it, that's a whole nother story. But just being invited. So anyway, to answer that question, you know, long story short, it just developed with the brotherhood. The fact that they invited me everywhere they went. Every time they would play like a major event, you know, Marcy's brother Jesse would be like, "Hey, Lord, you cool, man? You good? You good? We got you? You bringing somebody with you tonight, man?" Like that sort of thing. Like, and then Mars just be happy to see me. He's like, "Hey, what's up, Neff? You come over." Like, you just, you know. So knowing that, and not just because we were hanging around, because again, when you show and prove, and you get that respect from the guys that made you who you are, and nobody could tell me nothing at that point. Even now, but I'm saying, but back then, you couldn't tell me nothing. I'm rolling in events with Morris and these guys. Come on, Neff, get in this prayer circle. Okay, I'm not performing, but just to get invited to the prayer circle.
Yeah.
Because these are the men who I looked up to among the many men out there.
So, Law, having said all that, you know, we know that Jellybean passed just 12 days ago. And so we'd like to know how you're holding up, you know, and what does it mean to you, you know, the significance of that event. And I know we talked a little bit about this backstage last Friday.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, every day is a struggle. It really is. Because as y'all know, I spoke to him the day that he actually passed. Not to mention 2 weeks before that, we were all together in Newark. And the funny thing, I told you the story. The funny thing was that I had just came from being with New Kids on the Block and Donnie and those guys in Vegas. And I was planning on staying till Saturday, but I got called for 2 shows. Not to mention the whole cancellation of those flights and all that stuff that was happening. My own mother even called me and said, "Hey, Lawrence, I'm just calling to, I don't know if you were planning on coming back, but I think if you got a show, you should come back early now." I'm like, "Mom, get out my head," because I was already thinking about it. Oh, when the plane landed in Newark, my first instinct was to go to Long Island, get settled, get dressed, and then come back to Jersey. But that would be too much. It's too much going on. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Jersey. That's New York City rush hour traffic. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm gonna go straight to the venue. So I called Jesse and Bean. I said, "Look, y'all there yet?" He said, "No, we're not there yet." He said, "But if you go there, if you get there early," he said, they knew I was coming from a flight. And the fact that God allowed that flight to not get canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, it's not even about the time. I got 2 shows of my own. I ain't missing no money. So being with them before my 2 shows was the icing on the cake. And then God really had plans because think about it. How was I to know that would be my last time seeing my uncle physically?
Right.
It was a normal night for us. They got there 3 hours before the show in the dressing room talking shit. Y'all know how we do.
Yeah,
All the
Yeah.
stories, talking shit, and,
Oh yeah.
and gagging on each other and stuff, joking around with each other. Business as usual. And, Bean was like, "Hey, nephew, man, sorry it took me long to send you those guitars in for the Jets song." He said, "But I was going to make sure I did a good job. Did I do a good job?" I said, "Yes, you did. I'm just waiting on you, man."
Yeah, we got to mention you produced the Jets. They haven't put a song out in 30 years, and you get the new song is produced by
Yes.
you.
I'm the producer. I play all the instruments except for Jellybean solo. The Wolfgram sisters in the Jets, they wrote the lyrics. And Jellybean was very adamant about having them on this new project. He showed them so much love because from what the girls told me, even though us historians that know the Minneapolis history, we know that the Jets are a part of that because of David Lee's production of their music and their hits.
Right.
But usually when people talk about all the different acts and groups, for some strange reason,
they get left out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when Beanie came up to them, when they came to Minneapolis that one, I wasn't there. They came to Minneapolis that one time, and they didn't even realize that their name was on the wall in the Minnesota Music Cafe. It's on the wall alongside the time and everybody. They didn't even know, and that made them feel so good to know that. Yeah, I mean, I've always said it. You gotta remember, I'm very close to Kathy. I've always said it. I told them that. But to hear it from somebody who they looked up to, and then to get a call, "Hey, I need to be on this next record," because truth be told, and the Jets will tell you this themselves. When I get Moana and them on the show, they'll tell you the story. They weren't really thinking about doing new music. No, interesting, right?
Mm.
So I kind of put a fire up under them. No, respectful, because I felt like if it's the one chance, because first of all, they were getting back out there doing shows. The people love them. It's like, oh my God, the Jets say they're still here. They still around. So what better way to bring it all together and put out a couple of new songs?
So great.
And then Jellybean being the anchor saying, "Yeah, this is the one I want to. So again, every day is a struggle. I just think that I'm learning how to deal with the fact that we're not going to see him physically. And I think that's what hurts the most because every conversation me and had always ended with, "Love you, uncle, love you, nephew," that sort of,
Yeah.
because that's just the way we was, and just the fact that, we truly are family. When I would come to Minneapolis, I stayed at his house at least 3 times.
So, Law, how do you think that relationship is going to play into and affect your show coming up at the bitter end? Because part of the show is going to be a tribute to Jellybean.
Yes. Well, I mean, we're doing She Can Get It. And as
Oh,
you know,
cool.
that's a very historic song for a lot of different reasons because it was originally intended for my album. Keep in mind, I didn't have lyrics yet. All I had was the guitar. I was scared to send that to Bean because at the time, Bean was already putting out a few singles doing the whole blues rock thing, which I love too. I do that as well. So the reason why I felt in my heart he wanted to make this album a little bit different because people would expect to hear the Minneapolis regular funk and Obraham Simpson, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So he probably wanted to do something different. So I was scared to present that song. He's like, I thought he was going to say, "Nah, Lord, that's like the stuff I do already with Marshall. I really don't want to do that." And I would have respected that. But when I sent him the basic demo, which is what you hear, of me playing drums, bass, and guitar, and doing my best Monty imitation on keyboard. He heard it and flipped out. "Nephew, yes, I said, "Okay, Bean, under one condition, actually 2 conditions." He said, "What you want? Can we get Uncle Monty on this?" And from what I heard, when they told Uncle Monty it was me and my song, Monty said, "The law? Anything. That's nephew." Because, he didn't have to jump on the song. And then, of course, as y'all know, I brought my rhyme idol, him, out of
Yeah.
Tony, up until he did She Can Get It, Tony M has not kicked a verse in over 30-something years.
Yeah.
And there was no way in hell I was going to do a hip-hop Minneapolis funk song and not have one of the greatest MCs to ever pick up a damn microphone.
He came and spit it like old school.
Yes, he did. Didn't it feel good just to hear his tone?
Yeah, it did.
When he sent me the verse back, you should have saw me in the control room. When he sent me the verse, I'm like, boy, they're not going to believe Tony M is back. I said, yes, he is. And not to mention, we're working on the EP. You do know that, right? We're Tony M. We're doing a 6-7 song EP for next year.
You heard it
We
here
already
first.
got one song.
Heard it here first.
Heard it here first.
I'm so thrilled. Hey, we're going to have him on at some point, and maybe we can have the two of you come back on.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be awesome. But before the show this Friday at the Bitter End, it's definitely going to be emotional because the rehearsals were emotional.
Can't imagine. Can't even imagine.
The first part of the show, the rehearsal, we didn't even, we just hugged each other, man. We all felt that. And mind you, we were in the same room where we all rehearsed with Jellybean and Uncle Eddie M for that class show that we did in New York.
Right.
The cutting room. So all the memories came back. I said, remember I warned you? I said, listen, Uncle Bean, Scorpio like me. So if he stops the rehearsal, when he hears something ain't right, y'all better be ready.
You better come correct.
Yeah. And mind you, he only stopped it twice for a couple of things. But see what I mean? But they felt so good getting that accolade from, especially my drummer. You know what I mean? Because considering the history.
Well, and you know what? I just want to give a shout out to Sky really quick, because the musicians that I've seen you play with, you had Karma out there, you had Dorsey, but Sky and I have formed a relationship. We've actually only physically been together 2 or 3 times. We text, we have a conversation. He is just a straight up good brother. Yes. And he keeps a tight pocket on stage. This brother, he's just bad. Not only that, but he's just a gentleman.
Absolutely.
We have to give a shout out to Sky because that's my dude.
All day, man. That's been my drummer and my big bro for over 30-something years. And to think, I got him from my uncle's church.
Wow.
Him and Cecil on bass.
Yeah.
Because when I started putting the unit together, and as you know, as a noted, celebrated drummer myself, I'm picky about drummers. So for me, it's like, I need somebody that's on it. I need somebody that is already good, but willing to learn more and get better in his craft. Or her. Yeah, her too.
Right.
And Dorsey was the one that showed improve. If you've seen him, he's gotten even better. He was already sick when we first started, but he's even better.
Yeah.
Now, and again, true gentleman, scholar. And in many situations, Sky's always been, I'm the leader. It's my band. I put it together. I make the final call. But in many times, he's been the mediator and the peacemaker for certain situations. Whereas, like, let me hear his perspective. And then when you hear it, it's like, I didn't think about that, So, yeah, shout out to Sky, man. I love him so much. Still here with me rocking, loyal forever.
Yep. Like I said, keeping that tight pocket. That's our man.
Oh,
and if you want to hear this, and there's a few tickets left that I understand, Law, and this is at the Bitter End, 147 Bleecker Street.
Yes.
NYC. The doors open at 9 o'clock, shows at 9:30. I think at this point, you're probably sold out of all the seated seats, and there's probably going to be a little bit of standing room left, I understand.
Yeah, I think the 5 seats that were available are now gone at this point. And it's crazy because the standing room only for people that just want to dance and hang out and see the show, and there's bar stools. But for the most part, it's sold out. All the main seating area pretty much maxed out the room. So once again, shout out to the fans. Planet 12 is a grassroots indie movement with no major label backing of any kind. So the fact that we built that support over the years, and not just through our affiliations with Amy and Morris and Parliament Funkadelic and so many other people that I've either worked with or got celebrated by, but people get their money's worth. That's why they come out to see the shows.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I need to touch base on that because having seen your shows before, to your point, people get their money's worth and more. This show is, not only is it high energy, okay, but it is true musicianship. I mean, I saw you come out there and it was just off to the races as soon as y'all hit the stage. And really, that's what time it is because people are coming out to see live music and help to support. And for 2 straight hours, I mean, it's just putting in work. And anybody that is fortunate enough to go to the show, you're definitely in for a treat because if you want to see a high energy performance with world class musicians, you have to go.
And we got to honor live music, folks. This is our modus operandi here at the Electric Vibe podcast. We got to keep the music alive and with real people playing real instruments because that's what we're about here.
In the words of Prince Nassim, if you love boxing, you're about to see a show, baby.
Right.
No, that's the attitude. I love Prince Nassim. He's like, you always dancing down the ring. He said, well, no, Muhammad Ali's my idol. And, even though we come in to put in the pain, they're going to get a show. And that's always been the attitude. As y'all know, if I wasn't doing music, I would either be a lawyer, boxing, or playing football. Those are my 2 favorite sports. So I still box to this day. Most of my nephews box. My other nephews in the MMA now. So like we're that kind of family. Like we're very much hands-on. My older brother was co-signed by Magic Johnson for his role of doing assists when we were playing ball in Tucson, Arizona. Lou Alston was his mentor. So that's my mentality. I'm a warrior. And people came to spend their money with all the lackluster performances from some of the artists of this generation. Keywords, some, not all. Some artists in the generation are very lazy. People put on their clothes to go out and see a great show and have a great time.
Right.
And be mesmerized, whether it's a musicianship, whether it's me doing the splits or jumping off the stage or doing something crazy or just being a comedian in between it all. And I believe in being effective because if it's prolonged with certain sections of the show that's too much, people get lost.
Yeah.
You have to keep their attention span.
And you're there to entertain.
I learned that very early in the game, being a performer in New York and then perform with my family in nightclubs.
Yeah.
People want to be entertained and bring more because when they come back, they bring more people with them. That's what we did. We built our audience because again, I came off the road with P-Funk. I'm thinking I got it made. First show we did only had 7 people. And that showed me, okay, Lord, this, it's not really much of a failure, but you're learning.
Right.
And I didn't complain. I was just like, okay, I got a little bit more work to do. But that's when I also realized, again, just the same way as with my family, it didn't matter who my grandfather was. It don't even matter who you affiliated with. Because again, people are learning you for them.
Right.
So if you don't bring that early, you don't come with it, you can be an easily forgotten band or artist.
Right. You'll get left behind, right?
I was like, okay, they were okay. There wasn't much to run on the mama about. No, we're trying to build a fan base and make you go run home and tell your mama, your sister, your brother, your auntie, whoever that's the whole goal.
Right. You know what? Before we let you go, beyond the show at the bitter end this Friday, what can the fans look forward to in 2026? Can you share little nuggets here and there?
Man, absolutely. Well, you heard it here first, and make sure you get your tickets ready. Same thing with you, Kurt. April 17th, we're at the Cutting Room again for a Prince tribute show.
April 17th. There we go.
Unlike and you know how I do with the Prince tributes because we built. Because remember, as I tell everybody, as y'all know, we are not a Prince tribute band. We have our own stature, what we do, but when we celebrate our heroes, we do it right. So I can promise you, we probably may do 1 to 0 songs off of Purple Rain.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming with the catalog. Yeah.
I might be able to actually make that. It's a Friday. Jay, we got to talk about that. We're going to talk off the air.
Absolutely.
And the Tony M project you're working on, the EP, is there kind of a set date for that yet? Or
we're still recording, so we don't have a set date yet. But we've been having a lot of fun putting the ideas together. Because like I said, we got 1 song done and we're working on the second one right now. So we'll definitely be finished by February or March. So I'm going to probably look at a June. I would say the summer. We'll probably release it like right before the summer or that. But I have 3 or 4 albums coming out even before that.
You're going to be back on to promote those, we hope.
Sir.
This ain't over long.
Oh, yeah. It's a musical homage to Slide, too. You'll hear a lot of the different elements. There's a riot going on kind of thing.
I was just going to say, was there a little...
Dark.
Yeah. Well, if
It's
you're gonna
dark, it's
draw from the
funky,
slide well,
it's dark, funky, and just my bass line alone on that song is a straight homage to Larry. So you'll hear, oh yeah. So that's one part. Then we got the 3G Juggernauts, the 3G Cipher Jazz Fusion Project with me, Jay Bianchi, and Ben Graham, who is Lou Graham, Foreigner's older brother.
yeah,
Mhm.
you were telling me earlier today, we
Yeah.
talked on the phone.
So trust me when I tell you, that album's already completed and done. That album is sick too.
And the John
That-
Patitucci project too, right?
That's the same project. That's the project.
Oh, that's the same John
He
Patitucci. Yeah.
plays bass on 4 songs.
This guy, Law,
Do you-
I could geek out with you all night long, man. But you're gonna be back on the show to
And I'm here.
stuff.
I'm around. I'm gonna be back and forth for NAM and all that stuff. But I'm around, man. We'll make it happen.
Folks, we'll have all his social links and stuff below. Definitely want to put the Letterman clip with Amy Winehouse in there too, but we're going to have a couple things down there for you, links for you. If you like what you heard and saw today, folks, please hit the like and subscribe button so we can get great, amazing, talented people like the one below us here on the screen. And as I like to always say before we end every podcast, once again, Law, thank you for coming on here and
Thank you
paying
for
a
having me.
little
I had
tribute
so
to.
much fun, man. Thank you.
This is not over.
Not
Conversation
for
is
long.
only
We got so much stuff to.
Got more to do.
seriously. And as I like to always end before every episode, a rising tide lifts all boats.
And Law, I'm going to say once again, like we said, this was a long time coming, but we know that you are a busy brother, and we appreciate your time. Just what you're doing. Not for the industry, for the culture, for the music. We love it. We're going to keep supporting you. You always have a home here at the Electric Vibe podcast. We are going to be seeing you again. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. As I like to say before we close every show, when the universe comes knocking, you have to answer the door. Good night. Peace.
All right. Peace.